The Fallout TV show is full of brilliant scenes, but one in particular stands out, not only in how it captures the themes of the show in general, but also in how it addresses a question that plagues the real world every day. If cooperation can save the world, and conflict and exploitation are clearly destroying it, then at some point we gotta take a look at the rubble around our feet and ask, why? I am so excited about this. I've wanted to talk about this scene so much since the very beginning. So let's dive in. This is Season 1, Episode 5, The Past. The scene kicks off as Maximus and Lucy are walking down the train tracks, apparently wrapping up an amusing conversation about the hypocrisy of the Brotherhood of Steel that fans have been having for many years.
You guys use pre-war technology to find and collect pre-war technology to make sure no one has pre-war technology?
When you say it like that, I mean, yeah, it's...
They stop when they encounter two strangers that the subtitles reveal to be named Rink and the name on the screen. And I really wish it wasn't that name because they never say it aloud in the episode, and apparently it can be pronounced any way you can imagine. Javan, 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 apparently it's all fair game. I'm gonna go with Javan because it seems to be the easiest for me to say. Things get tense. Both sides go into survival mode. Makes sense, after all, what on earth is more terrifying than people that you don't know existing? Javan asks them if they're armed, and Maximus says no. Lucy reminds Maximus that, yes they are, but he ignores her and asks Javan if they're armed. Javan says no as well. So Lucy gives Maximus a look that says, see, they're not a threat, there's no need to lie to them. Totally taking it at face value that the average crusty rando in the wasteland defaults to telling the truth, despite literally just watching Maximus not do that. But she unclips her holster just in case, briefly drawing attention to her freshly installed poop finger that signifies the impact the wasteland has had on her thus far. Maximus tells Lucy to give him her gun under his breath, but she says no. She wants to keep control over whether violence is even necessary. After all, walking across the street is a pretty simple ask. Rink calls out that they're gonna start walking their direction, and Maximus is still urging Lucy. He points out that they're not safe because no one else is there to witness whatever was about to go down. In the event that Javan and Rink were filthy liars, there would be no consequences, there would be no accountability. There was nothing stopping anyone from making this turn real bad if doing so benefited them. Lucy reminds Maximus that the stranger said they weren't armed, and he says without missing a beat,
They're lying.
So Lucy claps back that Maximus is lying, because Lucy's education only prepared her for believing that lying is bad. She has no familiarity with the dire consequences in the wasteland that can be avoided by doing so. From her perspective, Maximus is the first person in this situation to do anything shady, so if there are any bad guys, it's them. But Maximus doesn't give a shit who the good guys or the bad guys are. He just wants them to be the not dead guys. Meanwhile, this debate and hesitation is kicking up a little anxiety on the other side of the tracks. Maximus, concerned for their survival, does not budge on his position, but Lucy, focused on her morality, doesn't budge on hers either. As of now, the two strangers have not done anything wrong, so she pushes the gun back out of Maximus's reach. This is just not a crisis. Lucy cannot fathom why four people can't walk past each other without bloodshed. Even in the wasteland, that is just ridiculous. So she attempts to make an appeal to their basic human compassion and reason, naively assuming these are universal traits. She's like, hey, there's a little tension, but how about we all take a deep breath? And Javan just pauses and looks at her and goes,
What the fuck are you talking about?
like she just burst into the 5 movements from the OA. But she's not gonna give up so easy, so she suggests that they all walk across with their hands in the air to assure each other they aren't armed and nobody's gonna shoot anybody. And she and Maximus walk aside and she turns her back toward the railing to hide the gun she's got tucked away behind her. Surely to God, if everyone can see that no one wants to hurt anyone, who would fire the first shot? Who would do that? Why? Javan's not wild about this plan. He gets defensive and reiterates they don't have weapons, and Maximus snaps back with hilarious comical delivery.
And neither do we!
And Lucy's just exasperated, like, oh my god, you guys, can we just walk across the fucking street? Criminy. So everybody reluctantly agrees, and they throw their hands in the air like they just don't care. Or like maybe they care a little bit. And they march bravely onward to take on the astonishingly complex feat of walking past each other. And we are all dazzled by their courage as Herb Alpert and the Tijuana Brass's Ladyfingers plays in the background, hitting the perfect note of amusing, but not overly comical. Because there is something inescapably silly about the amount of precautions these people feel compelled to take to engage in this basic act of civility. In the beginning, it's going pretty well. Lucy's feeling pretty smug. She's like, I'm not so bad at this wasteland diplomacy thing. I can really make a difference. I mean, who wants a gunfight? Honestly, these people just clearly need to be shown a better way. What could possibly go wrong? Spoiler alert, things go wrong. Things take a turn when Rink gets close enough to get a good look at that Pip-Boy on Lucy's wrist. Even we know about a shop in Philly that's hawking those doohickeys, so now there's something a little more valuable than just walking across the street at stake. Sure, if they just keep walking and don't start any trouble, everybody walks away with their lives. But if Maximus was telling them the truth when he said they weren't armed, then if they relieve these adorable, defenseless little mole rats of their breath, they'll get to cross the tracks and snag a tidy little payday. And bam, big shocker, Javin and Rink were less than honest about rolling unarmed and they reach for their irons. Maximus responds as quickly as his agility 7 score will allow and launches toward Lucy's holster before she even grasps what's happening. Javis fires the first shot, but luckily it misses, giving Maximus enough time to plant one right in Rink's neck before she has a chance to fire her 22 with the improvised scope. But since Lucy is standing there stunned and doesn't have the steel to back up Maximus, now Javin has a half-second advantage. So he points his makeshift revolver that apparently shoots human teeth, and he takes a bite, hardy har har, out of Maximus's left shoulder. Good thing Javin was not the member of that duo with the improvised scope. Sure did work out for our heroes that his accuracy was shit. Maximus's accuracy, on the other hand, is fine and dandy, so he wins the day by landing a headshot on Javin before the poor guy tumbles into the waters below. And Lucy, hasn't even lowered her arms yet. Maximus puts the 10mm in her open hand and she looks at him while she clasps her poop finger around it. She looks at the gun. She looks at the water. She processes what just happened, grapples with her emotions, and with tears in her eyes, asks the big question that I will attempt to spend the rest of this video answering.
Why?
Why did this happen? Why did they fire? Why couldn't Lucy stop this? Why would humanity choose to create a world where people can't walk past each other without fighting? Believe it or not, the answer has very little to do with animal instinct. It's not about biology. It's not even really about morals. Mostly, it's about math. Funky Death Claw reminding you to like and subscribe. Like and subscribe! You may have heard of a little something called the prisoner's dilemma. It's a foundational model in game theory, one of the world's most influential frameworks for studying human cooperation and conflict. The basic idea is that if two parties have a choice of whether to work together or work against each other, working against each other is going to be the stronger bet, for mathy reasons. But if you're not good at math, don't worry, neither am I, so I'm gonna try to simplify this with a visual. So let's say we're on one side and the other guys are on the other side, and we have no idea if the other side is going to support us or betray us. But regardless, we still have to decide what we're gonna do. So do we cooperate or do we defect? So let's play a game. For the sake of giving some sort of measurable value to the outcome, let's throw some numbers into the mix and say both sides start this game with 0 points. Either side wins 10 points if they are successfully not betrayed. But should you decide to be a filthy, filthy traitor, you get to steal 10 points from the other side. So if neither of us betray each other, we both get our 10 points. 10 points on both sides, nobody had anything taken from them, an equal and positive outcome for everybody. Yay! So if we want that outcome, we would choose to cooperate, and hope that they choose the same. We'd have to trust them to trust us. But if they betray that trust, and don't cooperate the same way we did, not only will they get their 10 points for not being betrayed, but they take 10 more from us, from our 0, putting us in the negative. We get punished for being nice. Like I've said in another video before, being the bigger person actually makes you the smaller person. And you gotta keep in mind that the same is true if you flip it around. If we betray them, we either double our potential winnings, or end up exactly how we started and lose nothing. If you're operating purely based on strategy and logic, cooperating is a bad move. And if the other side is looking at the exact same logic that you are, they're not gonna expect you to cooperate any more than you're gonna expect it from them. So the chances of cooperation paying off are pretty slim. So why would either of us do it? You know what they say, if you can't join them, beat them. Wait, that's not what they say at all, is it? Anyway, let's lay that framework directly on the scene, shall we? Lucimus and the Fiends start off with 0 points. If they manage to walk past each other without anyone getting killed, both sides achieve their primary goal, so that's 10 points each. If the Fiends shoot Lucimus, Lucimus takes a hit, -10 points, and the Fiends not only get their 10 points for successfully crossing, but an additional 10 for whatever loot they got off Lucy and Maximus's bodies, so they'd be up 20 in total. Now, Team Lucimus isn't interested in body loot, they just want to cross. They're fine with just 10 points. What they aren't fine with is getting shot. They're trying to avoid that -10. That's why Maximus wanted to have the 10mm at the ready. He's more familiar with wasteland scarcity than Lucy is. He knows the average stranger won't miss this opportunity. More than likely, these folks have no clue when points will ever come again. Why would they settle for 10 when they could literally shoot for 20? But Lucy didn't grow up with scarcity. She doesn't grasp why anyone would be dishonest for loot, much less risk violence for it. So she saw no reason not to cooperate, and because she cooperated with people strongly incentivized to defect, Maximus got shot in the shoulder. And we know exactly what word the ghoul would use to describe this kind of decision.
Stupid.
Yes, if two sides cooperate, the outcome is better for both. But in a world full of disconnected, isolated strangers, we learn that we can only predict or control our side. Who knows what the hell's going on over there? They might have some sort of leverage, power, or privilege that we don't, or we don't know about. They might be operating from different cultural expectations, a totally different moral compass. And if our moral compass prevents us from manipulating or overpowering them, the door's wide open for them to manipulate and overpower us. Distrust is responsible. And if you have kids or people who are depending on you, it feels more like a duty. Trust exposes us to the worst case scenario, and not trusting guarantees we can avoid it, even if it blocks us from the best case. And to a lot of people, accepting that is called growing up. This is why the world is the way it is. It looks ridiculous that these people can't walk across the tracks without shooting each other. And it's just as ridiculous that YouTubers have to normalize abusive comments, and that audiences have to normalize being lied to. When Javin says, "What the hell are you talking about?" you'll get the same reaction if you try to tell a major social media content producer, "Hey, how about we don't manipulate people for clicks? How about we invest in actual human creatives, writers, artists, influencers, instead of leaning on AI to cut corners financially at every given opportunity? How about we don't exploit human neurological weaknesses and people's ignorance about those weaknesses to farm attention for corporations who don't pay us enough?" They'll say, "What the hell are you talking about? You want to lose 10 points instead of gaining 20? This is reality. This is math. This is capitalist Sparta."
Welcome to the real world, jackass!
But does it have to be this way? Absolutely not. Game theory is an explanation, not an excuse. Yes, most of human history has operated this way, but we didn't know what we were doing. Now we do. If you look at this chart with any scrutiny, you can see how short-term this line of thinking is. Most of us aren't making these decisions in direct life-or-death situations. Our nervous systems just convince us that we are. A looming rent payment is serious, but it's not a gun to the head. More often than not, you can afford to cooperate and lose 10 points in the moment. We have evolved to the point that we can show each other that it's safe to invest in each other's collective well-being without risking getting stabbed in the back. That's how you gain allies and build and expand. We're not little kids anymore. We are capable of long-term planning. We can see and comprehend that taking short-term payoffs at the expense of long-term sustainability has created a self-terminating civilization, and choose differently. We are not compelled to obey a fucking chart. Like I said in the house video, human beings are not programming nodes. If we're able to comprehend the game, we are able to outsmart it. We just don't trust other people to do it with us. Real talk?
Can we just be hard dick for a second?
If you have to, if you're in a situation where you have to defect, do it. I am the Holy Rando from YouTube, and I give you permission. Defect if you have to. You can't afford to be morally absolute about this. Take the karma hit. Defecting to survive is not the same thing as defecting to extract power. Yes, defecting on a mass scale is evil, but defecting as an individual can be necessary. Cooperating on a mass scale gets shit done, but cooperating as an individual can be dangerous. The world taught us that cooperating with an open heart is how you get social support, and strategizing is manipulation. But look at the world that taught us that. Look at how it operates. Look at who it rewards. They're lying. Maximus gets it.
They're lying.
They want your points. Isolated individuals who cooperate more than they defect dissolve. They attract serial defectors who farm them for points. I obviously believe in cooperation, but with patience. The crew you can cooperate with is worth waiting for. Think long term. Cooperate wisely, with strategy. Outsmart the game. We're grown-ups now.
It's a game, and games have winners and losers. I prefer the former. How about you?
Until next time, stay cool, ferals.